soon enough, I got the call from my brother, and he said, Dad's at home and he's in bad shape. And so I flew home, and as soon as I saw him, I was like, wow, like his body was so frail, and he had just was in so much pain. And it was like rolling down my sleeves this time and recognizing, like, I'm not here to try to save him. I'm here to help him transition now. And it was just, that's when our friend came and sang the song, this on his guitar, and sang Let It Flow. And that song helped me tap into the depths of, tears I didn't even know I needed to release. Wow, I got to hold on to my dad's shoulder and be right with him and let him witness me in just an ugly cry with snot bubbles and tears falling and just like a full expression of grief. And in the depths of that grief, I hit gold and just recognized, like, what a beautiful opportunity to express how much my father means to me through grief, and to get to go to these depths I've never gone to before, and for him to witness that, ironically, the emotion that he had trouble accessing. And so that was a pivotal moment.
All right, Charles Clay, welcome to the podcast. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
Man, happy to be here. Excited to drop in with you. And I'm really excited about fatherhood right now. I'm in a really magical place with my two little girls. It's just been, really a gift to be fully present in all the moments and basically experience childhood again through their eyes. And it's been such a gift, man. And it's come a long way, because I remember a version of me that had a lot of resistance to the responsibility that comes with parenting. And as I moved through that resistance, feeling like I might have to give up some freedom, I found that more responsibility simply yields greater meaning to life. And that's what I've been experiencing every day.
Wise words right there. I was feeling into where we could start today. And, we just set a beautiful intention. We anchored in the heart energy frequency. And really where I wanted to start is I told you I did the alignment activation that you offer through your website, which is essentially some energetic body work as well with some breathing practices. But one thing that you kept saying in that short video, which we'll share with people, is that you're releasing any 3D debris in your body and in your mind, essentially. And that's where I really wanted to start on, like, the macro level. Is I feel like humanity right now is holding on to a lot of 3D debris that is not allowing us to maybe evolve to the next level, to our genius, to our potential, and have that state of inner peace. So where have you seen, from a macro level perspective, that humanity is truly holding on to any 3D debris or blockages that we can move through and begin to unlock?
Yeah, well said. And in the most simple form, it's anything that we resist, not trusting in the flow and the brilliance of life. And, oftentimes we're not taught in school how to be emotionally intelligent, how to process emotions. And so this is something that we end up getting initiated through in our lives. And there are some incredible tools available for actually releasing energy that's no longer serving us, and that has, I call it 3D debris. It's the old programs, the illusions, the negative patterns of thought that we find ourselves in, and the limiting beliefs that we create usually for ourselves at a younger age when we're presented with new challenging experiences. So there are ways to resolve that energy and release that. And every time there's, lessons and blessings to discover and deeper truths about ourselves. And it's all an interesting game to know thyself And so the more we release, the more that allows us to embody that higher self. And it gets to be really fun and exciting.
Yes, yes. And I wanna go back in the past, back to 2008 when you were going to snowboard with some friends and you guys were up in Mammoth and there was a blizzard essentially, and you went off this big jump and you landed. You said it was the most physical pain you've ever felt in your life. And they were going to try to solve it through, Western medicine and surgeries and things like that. And you decided in that moment to take the path of self-healing. And that started you off on a whole journey about learning about neurokinetic therapy and learning with David Weinstock and the whole, journey of that, of learning about the body and its self-healing properties. We see a lot of that personally in my work with Dr. Joe Dispenza and the things that people are able to release that are trapped in their body. So, where would you begin to explain to people about this bodily intelligence that we have to heal? Because a lot of people refer to the pill, refer to the things outside of themselves before locking it in internally. Where would you start to begin to tell people about these fascinating self-healing properties that we have?
Yeah. I mean, to expand on that story, pain has been such a potent teacher for me and helped me align with a greater purpose. And so I've come to appreciate even the most excruciating pain, and saw how that allows me to experience another gear I didn't know I had, and channel the inner Spartan warrior in the moments that are needed, and build that internal resiliency that even being confronted with talking to doctors showing me x-rays of how jacked up my spine was from that snowboarding accident, and that telling me I would need surgery or I'd never move the same again. To hear that was really pretty scary for someone that really appreciates the human body, these sensory suits that we get to call home for such a short time with my background in kinesiology. And so even in a fight or flight state, I was able to access that deeper intuition and choose a different path. And that was a very important crossroads in my life, so that led me to discovering and remembering that we are our own greatest healers. We oftentimes have been conditioned and taught that there's something wrong with us, that there's something that we need outside of us. And, that conditioning runs very deep. And so these are the layers and the programs and the patterns that we can release little by little that allow for the answers to come and to tap into the deep wisdom and knowledge that's within each and every cell of our being, the same energy that beats our hearts and that breathes us. We are a part of all that. And the more we tap into that by moving from Problemville, the mind, the ego, it's always like, what's in it for me? How's this going to work out? This is so much to deal with. And moving from that place, with a deep breath, taking a 12-inch ride with your awareness into your heart space, this place of just unconditional love where you can connect with everyone and everything. And you can even experience your heart's desires here already fulfilled. In that space, it's like, wow, look at everything I have to give. It's totally different operating system. So when we choose to reside there more, then the mind can become a beautiful instrument of the heart. And we can, set forth on our missions with more alignment, more ease and grace, more fun, more play. And then receive the lessons and the blessings from the challenges and the hardships in an accelerated fashion. And so that's been the majority of my work. And it's such an honor to get to share it.
Yeah. And you mentioned that journey from the head to the heart, that 12-inch, whatever inch journey it is. And truly, I wanted to ask you, what was the most powerful moment where you started to tap into those heart's desires that, were a tipping point maybe, or helped you work through one of those challenges that you were mentioning? When did you begin to start tuning into and listening to those desires that coming from the center?
Yeah, it's very natural to have desires. It's part of the human experience, right? And so sometimes we're taught that we shouldn't have desires, and some people take the non-attachment approach a little bit too extreme. and and when you really sit with it, it's like using one of the greatest tools right under our nose, like slowing everything down with the power of our breath,
Yeah.
and noticing like, wow, can I enjoy the desire of even having desire, just like revel in the experience of that, the desire that my soul seeks expansion, and something new and novelty. And so for me, it was pretty innate. It was early on that I recognized this, I call it vacation vibration.
Yeah.
And it is that same electricity that you feel when you say yes to your soul's craving of this novelty, right? You hit enter on a trip to Australia for the first time, or Brazil, or, wherever your heart desires to go and experience, and you're not even sure why, but you just say yes to it. Something really magical happens in that moment. You feel that excitement, that electricity. That is the vacation vibration. And every time you say yes to your intuition and honor that and take inspired action and go on that journey, you're increasing your connectivity to your soul, to that greater power. And you're improving that every time you say yes and honor that. And so that becomes really exciting. I discovered that early on and just decided to continue listening to that, continue saying yes to that, because it's brought me to so many incredible places. And then there's, the other voices that are usually more loud than the intuition, that are about like, no, we need to go back and play it safe where we're familiar, right? And even that familiarity can be very painful and suffering. And our ego wants to take us there because it's like a tour guide through this human experience that's all about safety and trying to keep us to where we know we can survive based on what we've done in the past. And so our soul is here for much more than just survival. We're on the cutting edge of learning in this human experience and growing and knowing thyself. And so when you get that intuitive hit, it is so important to say yes to that, no matter how irrational that sounds. Just say yes and watch as you discover new frontiers every time. And you'll know why when you get there. And then you go on the trip, for this example, and it's like you tap in easily, naturally, to a higher self, a version of you that's like more present and wants to connect and dive into the culture and experience, the flavors of Italy and the beaches of Thailand, and like really soaking up with all your senses these experiences. And so I got to do that so much that it hit me. I was like, why don't I incorporate this, which I know is possible, this vacation vibration, into my daily life and into my business and into, everything that we're creating. And so it's like a full permission slip to allow ourselves to play more. And yes, there is some, when the 3D debris shows up, when you're getting triggered, when get in that, like the muck, and you're in the, grief, or the even, vulnerability, and when you feel stuck, knowing that there are some powerful lessons and blessings to gain from that. And that on the other side of that, as you dance through that fear, there is so much freedom, liberation, and new levels of pleasure that are available to us. So it becomes a dance. I'm able to recognize those voices now, and I get to know those of the ego and of my intuition and the soul. And it's so much easier to differentiate and make choices from a heart space, which is in the highest and greatest good for all, as opposed to, the selfish nature and protective nature of the ego. And, it's not perfect, but it's improving every day. And it's really easy for everybody to experience this when you soften, use some of these powerful tools, slow down your breath, calm your nervous system, and then listen to the whisper and that feel. For me, it's a feeling of that electricity of my soul speaking to me in each and every cell of excitement. It's the path of highest excitement. And every time you say yes to it, boy, you're improving that connection, and great things happen.
Yeah. And this is just to share a personal conversation that I had where, the body gives us these subtle signs of when it is our intuition speaking, when it is our ego speaking. You talk a lot about muscle testing. We recently had a conversation with Dr. Bradley Nelson from the Emotion Code. And, he uses a lot of that muscle testing, but one of the more interesting ones that I found out about the body giving us these messages was I had a conversation with the founder of Uggs. So one of this multi-million-dollar brand, the shoe brand from Australia. And he said that every time he would get this like nudge of like, go talk to this person, go do this, go do that, he would get goosebumps throughout his whole body. And you've mentioned how it comes to you like electricity. For me, it is also as well just this feeling of goosebumps, chills, whatever you want to call it. But there's something that our body is literally communicating with us. It's opening that channel for our soul to come through. It's really fascinating when you like listen to it, really.
Absolutely. And even on the other side of that coin, like I mentioned, pain as such a great teacher. When we honor that, oftentimes when we're in a painful state, it's like this fight or flight state of like looking for anything to get out of this as soon as possible. When in fact, pain, I love the acronym, pay attention inward now.
Ooh.
And it's essentially your body's check engine light.
Yeah.
It has pain just like anxiety, just like grief. It's all energy, and energy is information. So your body's sharing some important information, and we've been taught to ignore that and seek, hop on Google, self-diagnose, and and usually that leads to more fight or flight. It's like, worst case scenarios, right?
The symptoms.
And then we're making choices from that fight or flight state, which perpetuate and create more of that experience. Instead, we can choose to pay attention to what's showing up, because we're very diligent, most of us, about, your car, your check engine light comes on. You're like, wow, I better get that serviced and make a change, soon, so I don't have a major breakdown. So why is it that we're not that diligent when it comes to our bodies? This is a vastly more intelligent, mechanism that we're working with here, these sensory suits, that when we pay attention to that and we listen, and you're like, it can be as simple as, well, when I'm, out doing and it gets more painful, as opposed to when I'm sitting up tall and taking some deep breaths, then the pain begins to subside a little bit, right? When you're in alignment, you're allowing more energy to flow through you, and that's your body communicating to you, hey, this is less painful naturally, so do more of that. It's like sit in meditation. Right. And that's important messages to decipher. And every time you honor that, you're improving the relationship with this intelligence with your body. And then you can bring more love, compassion to the parts that need it most within us. And that's been the majority of my work. Created an entire inner peace process for, one of the greatest skills we can have as evolving human beings is the ability to recognize these limiting subconscious beliefs that are running because we created them at a younger age when we were going through challenges, and allow ourselves to finally metabolize energy that's been trapped, that keeps getting poked and triggered by all our greatest teachers. We call them our enemies, or usually sometimes it's your loved ones, your family. They say if you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family. Right? The triggers will show themselves, knowing that, I'm feeling triggered. Cool. I can do some expansion breathing, 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. And notice the triggers are a gateway to deeper healing, and taking a look at some of this energy, this 3D debris that is no longer resonant in my body, in my highest self. And so by processing that through this inner peace process, it's incredible, because you can find out where those limiting beliefs were coming from and pull them like weeds and plant some deeper truths, because you get to connect with this all-knowing, wiser, sage version of yourself, this higher self that you can receive and embody answers and truths that are resonant with your body and that lights up your body in each and every cell. And that when you get good at this process, it's like you become incredible at self-sourcing and realize that, wow, I don't need all these gurus or, the pills or the supplements and all these things that we're just taught because marketing's so clever that we need, right? So it's very empowering. And, it's coming back to that deep knowing that we are our own greatest healers and nobody knows your body as well as you. And so as you honor that pain and recognize this is a check engine light and it can help me make some shifts in my life so that I can come into a greater alignment, so that I can experience more freedom, so that I can be more heart-centered and enjoy the greatest things that life has to offer and give more of my God-given gifts that I'm born with, to share in this experience. And, that's really fascinating. And I'm even would love to share, a quick process that can be really helpful for people some people that might be in a state.
Let's do it.
They might be in the muck right now. You might be, dealing with back pain or, some emotional energy that's keeps getting triggered and you're noticing some patterns and it's just, you feel like you're in this stuck space. And in that moment, again, you can use your breath. I love a 4-8 expansion breath. You're breathing like a balloon in every area of your body, beginning with the epicenter of your belly and just breathing in like a balloon, bringing in some more life force energy and filling up in each and every cell, and then exhaling into more relaxation for 8 seconds. All the way to empty. And then keep repeating this cycle. 4 seconds in, expanding in every direction, even your backside. Exhaling for 8 seconds in. And as you continue this, notice how this begins to calm your nervous system. You can drop your weight and connect with the support that's right under your feet, this magic Mother Gaia that's always holding us, and recognize all the abundance that's available to us. And then from here, we can feel a little more resourced and connect with that intelligence that's trying to tell us something in our bodies. And so to give the mind a question, it's like controlling the madness of the mind, which leads us to those negative programs that we're so used to experiencing. Instead, it's like a Labrador dog. When you throw the ball and the dog goes to get it, it's giving the dog so happy. Our mind works in the same way. It's if you give it a task, right? So if you ask the right questions, then you're turning on your reticular activation system. Yes, and this is a phenomenon that's so interesting because your reticular, meaning your retina, your lens at which you see your reality through, when you activate that, and they've studied this spot in the brain that is like filtering the millions of stimuli that are coming in every moment into what's actually important. And you guide that with the quality of your questions. So there's 3 questions once you calm your nervous system that you can begin to ask and allow for the answers to come to you. And the first one is really important because this alone can take you from suffering and victim mode, which prolongs the suffering. That's the why is this happening to me? Into, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm feeling some sensations here. First question is, how is this happening for me? And that is a really important question. And that sets the mind to seeking the answers instead of going in these negative patterns of self-diagnosing worst case scenarios and all that. And then the second question is, what are the lessons and the blessings that I am to receive through this challenge, through this experience? And that's a really key one because that leads to the third one, which is what wants to change? What is it in my life that no longer in harmony that I can let go of or make some shifts? And as soon as you honor that, these answers will come. And maybe if they don't even come in the instant that you ask them, it's okay. Just keep receiving in that relaxation state and notice as these answers start to show themselves And the more you honor that, what needs to change, it might be oh man, I'm just spending so much of my time, attention, and energy on social media. That's got to change, right? Like, these answers will come to you. They'll be really clear. Or I'm going out and drinking too much, or, I don't have a healthy relationship with cannabis, or whatever the thing may be for you, or even working. There's a lot of doers that are just so used to getting the badge of approval of like, I'm so busy all the time and I'm just a hard worker, and that's what's given me validation, and so I'm just going to keep doing that instead of tuning into what's present, right? And in that line of questioning, you can begin to receive some of the answers, and that's exactly what helped me go from pain, the most excruciating pain, like a level 11 out of a 10 scale on that mountain, into purpose, which was like looking back, recognizing, wow, back then I was a personal trainer taking on 10 clients a day, ready to help people and save the world through health and fitness. And yet I was going out on the weekends and overindulging and coping and trying to avoid a lot of the feelings that I didn't want to go into the depths of, such as grief, some shame, some fear back then. And so each one of those emotions yields some really powerful self-discoveries, and it allows ourselves to be more intimate with ourselves. And then when you learn these lessons and blessings, it's like, whoo, that's the value that you can share with others. That's how you can connect deeper with your lover, share them. Intimacy is into me, you see,
Yes.
So it's like sharing the intricacies of what you've discovered about yourself through these trials and tribulations. Then you can look back and see, oh, that's why that had to happen. And then you can even look back and be like, wow, I was given like a little feather from the universe of like, you should probably change this. You're a little out of alignment with your purpose, running on coffee and, using the midnight oil, all that, sex, drugs, and rock and roll to avoid what was actually present. And so this, I can go even deeper into this with my relationship with anxiety, because I feel like this could be really valuable for a lot of people, since anxiety is so prevalent in our culture right now.
Especially the young generations. And you say that anxiety is just a lot of energy. And I think I've had one major, panic attack in my life. And I know people have those frequently, and I can't even imagine what that's like, because it's so much energy running through the body. But you talk about how you started to channel it in a different direction. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for many years, like over a decade, I would this build up anxiety, and the same thing I was experiencing, panic attacks, and it would show up in the worst case scenarios, and it was this thing that I was good at hiding, right? I didn't want to let anybody know that I was feeling this nervous. I had this, shame around it, and so I was good at hiding that, even when I was on stages and sharing, and so instead, I was avoiding it for so long. I was like, I found all these ways to like go to the fridge, stuff it, go on Netflix and escape from it, phone a friend, all these things. But have I actually sat with this energy? And so I decided to take a new approach, and it was literally like getting to know anxiety. And even that word can have a charge. If you notice hearing that or saying that, how it can be a constrictive nature oftentimes in your body. Yeah. Because of our experience of that in the past. Whereas if we release that old experience about it, just recognize, call it what it is, it's energy. This energy is information. So I invited it in. It was like this information had been knocking on my door for, over a decade. And so finally I was like, well, let's sit with this and see what it has to share with me. And as I did that, it was like anxiety was an old friend at the door that was like, hey, I have some important stuff to share with you that can really change your life in a positive way. And you've been avoiding this. And so oftentimes, if you're experiencing anxiety and even depression, it's choosing to go as far from your natural purpose and your highest self. And we can choose to do that. and experience the contrast that will, likely bring us back to alignment. And with me, it was, as I invited that in, it was so uncomfortable. I remember that my mind just going like, hurry, get away from this, just get on your phone, like anything but to feel this. And I kept sitting with it, kept breathing with it. If we can breathe through it, you can get through it. And so I went to the depths of this energy and recognized that it was fear-based, and it was showing me my biggest fear right in my face that I was afraid to look at. And my biggest fear is deathbed regrets, is getting to the end of this life. And I have a very intimate relationship with death, having lost both of my parents. It has really allowed me to like fully appreciate and live life knowing that this is all temporary. And so that deathbed regrets fear superseded all the smaller, fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear of embarrassment, all these things that were pretty minor compared to this superseding fear that lit a fire and helped me recognize like, yeah, I have these amazing ideas, these programs that I'm meant to share, these ways that I could help people, these God-given gifts that I've been just like putting on the back burner and instead choosing to consume a ton, right? Instead of stepping into my creator consciousness. And that's what was out of alignment. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because we've been trained to be such consumers. And so when I sat with that medicine of anxiety and recognized, it was like embracing an old friend. It was like, man, I'm so glad I invited you in for anxiety, and like have the conversation because it dissolved and I gained the lessons and the blessings, and it lit this fire of like, man, I want to die happy. I want to die knowing that I played full out. I shared all the messages on my heart. I got to help as many people as I could and really lived the best life I could in this experience, instead of so many others that take their incredible ideas, take their messages on their hearts, take their God-given gifts and give into fear and play small and end up taking those to the grave. Yeah. That just makes me sad in my heart. And so this is a healthy fear, that ignited, like it helped me get to work on, I created the laser focus method after that and allowed a lot of other people to, gamify their get to do lists and choose to create more than they were consuming. And this actually helped a lot of people move through their addictions and their vices. And so there's some really powerful ways to rewire your brain through that. Also with positive, rewards and healthy celebrations after each win. And this is another part that a lot of people forget about is like when you get to the top of the mountain, take some time to enjoy the view. When you've checked something off that list, get to rejoice and reinforce that with a healthy celebration, a healthy reward. And that's different. A healthy reward is different than like, oh, let's go out and celebrate with tequila shots and a giant dinner and lots of dessert. That's great. There's a place for that too. But this is like, what are the things that light you up that activate your natural pharmacy of serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, the things that really light you up and just exude that adrenaline naturally in your body. And for me, that's like hopping on my mountain bike and going for a ride, jumping off the cliff into the lake 5 minutes from here. And it just fills my cup. Yeah. And so then I come back to the next task and the next adventure then I'm operating from this energy that is so much higher quality than a fight or flight state or creating from the, I need this to work type of energy. And so I'm so thankful for sitting with anxiety, and it inspired me to sit with all of these heavy emotions that I was avoiding, including grief, and just discovered gold there, there's so much to gain from that. And so I just encourage everyone to practice this of sitting and honoring what's present instead of resisting it, because that's what creates the 3D debris.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I honor your relationship that you have with death because you've lived it so viscerally. And just from when you were even 4 years old, your mother got divorced and she went away. And I think that was the moment that the abandonment wound turned on for you. And you talked about how that affected you in your future relationships. You know, you fell in love when you were in college and then again at 32. And these became short-lived relationships in your life where essentially it wasn't being able to go into this depth because of this abandonment wound. And then you found a way to sit with that loneliness as you were talking about, and eventually, as you said, call in your queen. And that's the topic I really wanted to get in touch with you about, is what does that process look like to you when you begin to open up your heart and call in that person for you, call in your king, your queen, maybe even utilizing a little bit of those higher energy centers from the heart, as well as maybe sexual energy, which is also what we use to create. Where would you start guiding people through that process of calling in, let's say, the one for now?
Yeah. You know, for me, it began as a desire. I knew, hey, I've done the bachelor thing really well, like turned over all the rocks and experienced the magic of that chapter. And there was this deep, yearning desire for the next level of just intimacy, connection, and relationship of marriage that I could create with my beloved. And so I felt into, some really powerful esoteric practices of calling her in. And it was really exciting because, I also had to show up and create massive discernment for what was not in alignment with that. Right. And that was, continuing to date for a period of time. It was kind of like these beautiful goddesses that were kind of needed help or in their healing journey. And
you call them the like damsel in distress.
Right. And so I kept giving my time and energy to that. And it was short-term fulfillment.
Yeah.
I was choosing short-term gratification over the long-term fulfillment, what my heart ultimately desired. And so, it was like finally saying no to that and discerning from that. And, when you claim like, I'm calling in my queen, the universe will be like, are you sure? Because here's all these, damsels in distress or more of the same, or, and I recognized my patterns from like an eagle eye perspective. Yeah. It was like, wow, this needs to change. And so I took space with myself. And that's when I really sat deeply with loneliness in the uncomfortable depths of that. And that is a great tip for anybody that's in relationships where you're noticing codependency, you're noticing the abandonment wound coming up, because this stuff runs so deep that, the first step would be sitting with loneliness and the uncomfortable feelings of it and find what's there. For me, it was just a deeper understanding of myself and recognizing, like, as I went into it, that uncomfortable energy begins to dissolve. And it was like, wow, when is the last time I finally had time and space, distraction free with myself, and filled up my own cup? Yeah. I was kind of more of an extrovert, back then. I'd get energy from others going out. And now I figured out by sitting with loneliness how to really charge up my energy, fill my cup in my own space. And I really enjoyed my own company. Yeah. And I didn't know to that degree until I sat with that loneliness and moved through that uncomfortable feeling, journaled about it, gained the lessons and blessings. And then for anyone calling in your king or queen, like really listing out not only the things you want in them, but really what you bring to the relationship, like your God-given gifts, your unique things that you're bringing to the table as a king or a queen that you get to share in this container. And that helped me get really clear too about, wow, I'm much different than the old unworthiness story that I was running for so long from the abandonment wound. Yeah. Like you mentioned, when my mom left when I was 4, I was like, wow, that was one of the first most vivid memories, because I remember her leather coat she was wearing. I remember the lipstick color she was wearing, and for her to kneel down and tell me that she was leaving and I didn't know when I would see her again for a 4-year-old, that's a lot of emotions to try to process. And so it took years to resolve that. And then again, when I was 10, my mother took her own life, and she was in the depths of depression and alcoholism and just needed to hit the eject button. That was the only way out that she saw in that moment. And so for a brother and I to be sitting at my own mom's funeral and trying not to cry, trying so hard to hold back tears because I had picked up the belief from older kids I hung out with that, you're a man, you can't show weakness, crying's for girls, this silly beliefs that I picked up. And because I held back and resisted those tears, it took years to allow myself to finally resolve the layers and layers and layers of grief and find the gold in that, and so that actually inspired the inner peace process. And that's how I discovered how to heal ourselves from something even as deep as the abandonment wound, and pull these negative beliefs of like, oh, it must have been my fault as that 4-year-old, or must have, I must not be good enough, or, I don't deserve love. I'm not worthy of love, right? Because the woman I love the most left me. And so that pattern kept showing up in my experience with my college sweetheart. She ended up leaving me after a year, and another girlfriend after that, until I had this aha moment of, wow, this keeps showing up. It's pointing to the part of me that needed the most love, support, and safety. And that was my 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So that's why I love this process, because I got to reconnect with that version of me and essentially rescue him, see what he needed, rescue him from that experience, and finally process and let those tears fall and let him express the anger that he had, And
well, there was a specific moment for you. Sorry to cut you off like that, but there is this moment when, you were explaining how you were at the funeral and you held in those tears, and that eventually even probably got trapped in your body and was what created the abandonment wound to prolong in the first place. A moment when you heard this song called Let It Flow, where you said you never cried that much in your life. Would you like to open up the floor to talk about that, and also how it helped you release or unblock anything that you were still holding on to?
Absolutely. That song was because my dad, to back up a little bit, later in my life, about 8 years ago, my father, 6'5", my hero.
6'5". How tall are you?
Yeah, I'm 6'2" on a good day.
I'm 6 foot on Tinder.
Nice. There you go. And I remember, I'll never forget getting that call from my dad. And I could tell by the tone of his voice, something was really wrong. And he called me. I was in San Diego at the time, and he was back in Washington. He said, I just left the doctor's office and I got some bad news. I said, what'd they tell you, Dad? And he said, they said I have stage 4 lung cancer.
Stage 4. Wow.
Yeah. And they did a CAT scan, and they told me the bad news. And they said, you have like 2 to 4 months to live. So imagine what after my experience with death, hearing that, I took a deep breath, and I chose really wisely what I shared next. I said, Dad, do you want to beat this? Do you want to live? And he said, yeah, you're damn right I do. And I said, good. Then don't listen to a word those doctors said. We're going to get you on everything that's already helping you cure your own cancer, right? And everything that's preventing it, everything that we're going to cut out everything that's been causing this.
You were also a big biohacker at that point, right? The sauna, totally. The red light therapy, the whole thing.
Absolutely. So we got him hooked up. He became a biohacker. We had the infrared sauna, the red light therapy, the green juices, the whole, Gerson Institute protocol, which has been helping people cure cancer for themselves for years and years. And so just opening up this opportunity for him to choose to continue living, and that he had so much reason to live. And And in doing that, that meant changing his ways. And one of the common denominators for him was he was a smoker. And so he switched from like cigarettes to e-cigs, but that was a big factor because just like I held back my tears at my own mom's funeral, my dad had held back a lot of grief. I only saw him cry once
Yeah.
in his entire life when my grandpa died. And I'm so glad that I asked him a question, even though I was really young. I said, Dad, what do you miss most about grandpa? And he said, I'll never forget his answer. He was like, I miss just being able to pick up the phone and just check in with him, and just shoot the crap and talk football and just see how he's doing and just those like consistent check-ins, that connection there. And I'll never forget. I was so glad I asked that at a young age because I made sure to call my dad every week. We would have good drop-ins, and even if he was in a bad place, I'd, do what I could to raise his vibration a little bit. And so for him to get that diagnosis and to change his whole life and even cut out smoking, was big because, as we know in Chinese medicine, the lungs, right? He was suffering from lung cancer. Lungs are associated with grief. And so it was this inability to process grief that was showing up and creating this experience of cancer. And so, deep healing. And with the next journey, there was moments when he got out of the doctor's office, got a new CAT scan, and was like, we celebrated. We found out he was cancer free. It was like this huge journey of, him recognizing his own power.
And that was only within a couple months, right?
Yeah. So it was, 6 to 8 months. He shifted so much and began improving. And then, year or two later, he started kind of falling back into his old patterns, picked up e-cigs again. And so I would go visit him, and his health began declining again. He was eating sugar again. And so I remember I would get the call from my brother and my sister, hey, Dad's in the hospital, and I'd fly out from San Diego, set my intention before going into the hospital. Like, I'm going to go in there like Patch Adams. I'm not succumbing to this like low vibration zombie energy of the hospitals. I'm bringing
raise the vibe.
Vacation. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm going to have as much fun as I can in here and get my dad out of here as soon as possible. And that was my intention that I set my reticular activation to. So I got to know the doctors. I was like, okay, doc, what does it take to sign him off and get him out of here? You want me to, have him walk a couple laps around the thing? He's like, yeah, this, that, and the other thing. And so here I am, like coaching my dad while he's on a walker, my hero, helping him do 3 laps around the hospital floor to get signed off and get to take him to the park and get some grounding and, have a picnic and some good food and some sunlight on him. And I just remember like every smile and laugh that we shared was just so visceral. And I was there fully present for that, to anchor that in vivid HD memories, because I knew, his time was temporary here. And so soon enough, I got the call from my brother, and he said, Dad's at home and he's in bad shape. And so I flew home, and as soon as I saw him, I was like, wow, like his body was so frail and he was in so much pain. And it was like rolling down my sleeves this time and recognizing like, I'm not here to try to save him. Like, I'm here to help him transition now. And it was just, that's when our friend came and sang the song, this on his guitar, and sang Let It Flow. And that song helped me tap into the depths of, tears I didn't even know I needed to release. Wow. I got to hold on to my dad's shoulder and be right with him and let him witness me in just an ugly cry with snot bubbles and tears falling and just like a full expression of grief. And in the depths of that grief, I hit gold and just recognized like, what a beautiful opportunity to express how much my father means to me through grief.
Wow.
And to get to go to these depths I've never gone to before. And for him to witness that, ironically, the emotion that he had trouble, accessing. And so that was a pivotal moment And it wasn't long after that, I'm holding his hand, and I knew he was close, and he was just fighting and holding on for us,
Yeah.
by a thread. He was still there. I knew he could still hear me. And I said, Dad, we love you so much. Like, we will always be with you. And where you're going is so peaceful. It's so beautiful. It's so blissful. And there's no need to fight anymore. And those were the last words. And he took his last breath. And I felt his energy leave his body. And it was some of the most potent medicine, being that close to death with someone that you love and admire so much, was just this richness of like fully appreciating life and getting to connect with him in spirit now, and with my mom as well, and just recognizing, I remember, even as we had our first baby, it was like, man, I cried because I wanted my dad and my mom to get, grandparents to get to meet their sweet little girl in this womb, and I have my hand on my wife's womb, and there's this tiny layer of skin between this sweet little angel in the womb, this baby, and me, and her soul can't see me, but we can experience each other vibrationally through this little veil of skin. And I recognize that, wow, it's the same thing. Here we are in this human experience with this very thin veil to all of our ancestors, to all of our fallen forefathers and mothers, and those that have passed, that are still with us and still experiencing us. And what a beautiful gift that is, to be able to connect with them in this way, even, when there's this small veil between us.
Yes.
And so it's just been a really rich, enlightening experience, to be that close to death, and to get to tell my father with, pure certainty that, where he's going is peaceful and blissful and amazing, because that helped me connect the dots, realizing why I was intuitively called to some of the plant medicines and even the toad medicine, 5-MeO, that allowed me to experience that, what it's like outside of these bodies.
Yeah. And first of all, thank you so much for opening up and being vulnerable. I could really feel that whole experience for you. And just, I think by you sharing it with other people, it elevates the consciousness even more. And you mentioned how you were able to tell him with certainty, like this knowingness in your heart, that where he's going is blissful, it's beautiful, it's beyond what you can imagine. And you started off that medicine journey with plant medicines at a very early age, at sophomore year in high school. Firstly through LSD, and then your principal and your friend was growing mushrooms, and there's a whole amazing story behind that. But really, essentially, I wanted to extract maybe the most powerful lessons you've gained from tuning into that space where you can access beyond the veil. Maybe if you've even had the chance to connect energetically, vibrationally with your parents, with anyone else beyond the veil. What's that experience like? I'd love to open up just maybe a quick story that you've had of a most recent or potent journey of yours.
Absolutely. I was so science-minded growing up, had to see it to believe it, show me the proof, and so, what really cracked me open after losing my mom was this intuitive hit. My friend came out of yoga class, a good buddy of mine in San Diego. We had both finished our yoga certifications so that we could teach yoga at that time. And he was like, man, this gal in my class, she's invited us to this incredible retreat with Buddhist monk Geshe Michael, and there's meditation and yoga and dancing and all these things. And I stopped him like mid-sentence and was like, we're going. And it was this like strong intuitive hit of like, I'm supposed to be there.
When you get those, 100%.
Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier. And so that, I remember my friend saying, oh man, I'd love to, but like, I don't have a dime to my name. He was in, scarcity mode. It like didn't have a lot of money at the time. I was like, listen, I have some savings. We'll make it work. And I ended up gifting him that trip and paid for his way
Wow.
because I knew he would bring so much value. And we even, another friend tagged along that was kind of early on his, spiritual journey. And so the three of us, I remember we're on this plane ride going to Guadalajara, and I looked at him and I'm like, appreciate you guys saying yes to this because I have no idea what we're in for. Like, this could be some crazy cult and they want us to drink the Kool-Aid, and we can just say abort mission and peace out and go create our own vacation at the next town over, tequila. So they were on board, we were all in, and we were so pleasantly surprised with what we learned and experienced at that 10-day retreat. It was incredible. It was like first time I'd really been, just received open armed hugs from complete strangers that had this deep knowing. They'd been following Geshe Michael, who is this, renowned white guy monk that had been through the entire journey of that. And he just it looks like he's been smoking weed, and he's got this demeanor, and he has this silly haircut, but he is so he was one of the most enlightened men I'd met at that time. And he would drop us in every day to these really powerful and potent meditations. So each day we're getting opened up more and more in our heart space, just letting go of, heart armor that we were wearing over our hearts. And so I remember, we met so many cool characters and people on this, and Geshe Michael was teaching the science of karma in that retreat, which was essentially, we're always creating karma. It's essentially our actions that create reactions and effects, right? And so we're always planting karmic seeds, whether we want to call those good or bad. We're the meaning makers of that, but it always comes back to us. And so recognizing that there's a way to actually water those good karmic seeds that we're planting. And this was one of the gems that I took away from it. And he was sharing the power of Tartuk. And this is a practice of, I'll share it because it was so potent for me. Tartuk is Sanskrit for rejoice. So for your nighttime routine, you can rejoice in all of the amazing good deeds you did, all the ways you got to help people, all the door you held open for the grandma that walked through, the smiles you got to share with people, the food you got to create for people, all these little seeds that you're planting throughout every day. It's important to rejoice in those before you go to sleep. It's called Tartuk, and this waters those seeds.
Sort of like feeling the joy that you had from those experiences again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Huh. Yeah. So you're reliving those and getting to experience, how you got to help these people and the impact that it had in their life, and rejoicing in that experience, that connection. And by doing this before you go to sleep, it's, allowing it to go into your subconscious and can come back to you in the most beautiful ways. It's a way of watering the seeds per se. And this was really potent and powerful for me at the time because, I'd understood karma, but not how to water our seeds and do this nightly routine. And so things started shifting for me right away. And I remember everybody that I met there was just, they're like, no, you first. No, this is for you. And they're sharing. These women from Argentina were incredible, and they're sharing their gifts of dance. And John was, showing people acro yoga. And I took my buddy John aside. I said, listen, let's create a fitness workout for people. We'll help them upgrade their health, their fitness, their wellness every morning before first meditation for the rest of the retreat. And he was all in. And so, we announced it at dinner, and we had 2 people that showed up for the first one, and then 4, and then 8. And by the end of the retreat, there was 40 people from the retreat that were coming to work out with us in the morning. And it was so much fun. And it was just something that we could give, and so at the end, Geshe Michael he called us up and gave us these mugs that said Tartuk. And we got to rejoice in, getting to share some of our gifts while we were there. And I'll never forget the last day of that retreat. There was a really epic soul that I met named Christian on this retreat. He was a dear Viking brother, long blonde hair, piercing blue eyes. And he was pretty quiet and stoic, but he taught yoga there. And I was dealing with some back pain at the time. And I said, man, you look like you've you've had some incredible experiences and gained some really impotent wisdom, I'm sure. And he just looked at me, he said, come to my yoga class. And I was like, man, I'd love to. I'm dealing with this back pain. And he's like, yeah, you can take it at your pace. So the last day I went to his class, and despite the back pain, I ended up doing poses I didn't even know I could do. I'm like basically doing the splits for the first time, balanced on my heel, my toes, and like it cracked me open physically, emotionally, spiritually, to the point where I had let down so many walls from my heart and my old beliefs around have to see it to believe it, and science-based, that during Shavasana, while we're in dead man's pose, yeah, I'm sitting there with my two buddies on each side of me, and it was so visceral and so potent. This was the first experience I had after losing my mom, that she literally came to me and I could see and feel her. She had this golden blanket. It was like bringing warmth to my 10-year-old within me that was so devastated of her loss, and getting to embrace her again and like feel this like hug again with my mom in this state of meditation that just, cracked me open. And, here I am bawling and crying in the middle of this class, yoga and Shavasana, and captured everybody's attention. And my brothers were like holding my hands. And that was the first time I'd been like really seen, yeah, in my grief in that experience, which was super vulnerable, but just so beautiful, because everybody ended up coming over and piling up and giving big hugs and let me share the experience of what I saw and felt in that moment. And I'm so glad I just said yes to that, because it allowed me to connect to my mom in this way, and recognize, she's a beautiful guide on my journey now. And so that cracked me open to, wow, all we have to do is believe it and we'll see it, and shifted everything for me and allowed me to connect deeply with the other side of that small little veil that we normally don't see in this human experience.
What a beautiful journey. And I think that veil really is so thin. It's just the logical mind that gets in the way many times, that I think sort of blocks out what we can perceive. And when our psychic abilities begin to turn on, this new consciousness that we're creating right now, I think even our children, the babies that are coming in right now are already tuned into that vibration, already upgraded in their DNA and all these other things. It's going to be an amazing world that we're creating. And I just honor you, brother, for being that masculine presence that the world needs. And I wanted to begin wrapping up. We have a final trio segment. These are sort of rapid fire questions that we have. You can answer in any way you want. But before that, I wanted to leave people off with where they can connect with you, because I know they're going to want to connect with you. I told you that I did this alignment activation right before the call. I'm going to start doing it in the mornings because it was really powerful from the heart. It was really powerful. So yeah, where would you send people to connect with you, to your programs, everything that you wanna mention?
Absolutely. Go to charlesclay.coach and scroll to the bottom, and as soon as you subscribe to the newsletter, you will gain that free gift, that alignment activation. It allows you to come in and reclaim full sovereignty, I call it, which is just filling up with your own life force energy so much that there's no room for anything else. And it's such a cup filler that allows you to go create from an amazing energy. So it's great for morning ritual when you're feeling stuck. I'd love for everybody to experience it and share how it moves you. And then for those on Instagram, you can reach out, charlesclay.coach, same. And I love to connect. So shoot me a DM if you want to learn more about the inner peace process, or just mention this podcast. And I'm happy to offer a 15-minute support call for whatever you're going through, as long as there's space available.
Amazing, brother. Now for the final trio, this first one, they're all personalized minus the last one, which we ask every single guest. But the first one that I had is, what is the embodied masculine archetype that you're tapping into right now, and how is it impacting the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a deep, heart-centered king.
Ooh.
Just in the newest, like most epic, heart-centered. Everything is in the highest and greatest good. Like the greatest leaders are cultivating and helping other leaders step into their power. So it feels really good to experience what's possible in this archetype, as opposed to what we've kind of been brainwashed about kings and queens in the tyrannical
Yes.
type of history. And so there's a new version of that emerging, and it feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the tyrannical nature. I was just reading from this chapter, the king, the lover, the warrior, the magician.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about the
Yep.
shadow aspect of the king is that high chair tyrant, that CEO that has amassed so much success. And probably through their wounding, they went on that path of only career-based goals and achievements that emotional side wasn't cultivated. So they treat people like robots, or they treat people like they're just flesh for them to achieve what they want to achieve. So I love you that you mentioned that, brother. That was really
Mm-hmm.
powerful. The second question is, what pain are you letting go of right now, and what power are you stepping into?
Mm. Yeah, this is a good one to tune into. It's interesting because I still experience anxiety, and it's in such a different way than I used to.
Mm.
It's like almost like an invited pain that is a messenger that I open the door to now, instead of keeping him outside and knocking on the door. So it's like an old friend that reminds me when I am over consuming, instead of choosing my creator consciousness. And so that is, I'm not perfect at that. And especially with balancing fatherhood and all the things and expanding into a new level of responsibility. And, it comes with, the ability to really fill my cup with like a 2-minute alignment activation, which used to take me an hour.
A quickie out here.
Yeah. So that I can, put the oxygen mask on others after mine's on, like with the airplane analogy, and give from that overflow. That's what I've been stepping into year after year, more and more. And I invite, and I don't resist like pain. I don't resist the anxiety anymore. I know it's a messenger for me. And so I just see it in a different way now. It's more like a friend, instead of this thing that I try to avoid or try to resist.
Yeah. I mean, it's about changing that relationship that we have
Mm-hmm.
to things that previously maybe had a grasp on us. And now we're the ones to say, all right, you're still there. Obviously, you're going to come
Mm-hmm.
up at certain triggers, situations, but I'm the creator here. You don't have the power over me. So I love that. That's a great tip. The last one, the final trio, is going to have us travel a little bit into the future, about 20 years down the line, because this podcast truly is a space for the next generation of leaders to calibrate into the new consciousness and become empowered leaders to be able to carry out this great prophecy, this golden age, this new earth that has been widely spoken about in the spiritual community and channel texts. Really, everywhere you look, it's like we're entering a new age, and the new leaders are stepping in right now. And I feel like the younger generations 10-20 years down the line are going to step into more roles of leadership, whether it's in business, in medicine, in spiritual communities, in education and technology. So this is called the time capsule question. And if I were to give you a time capsule, and you knew that 10 and 20 years down the line, the next generation of leaders, your daughters are going to open this time capsule and they're going to find the tools, the vibration necessary to be able to lead in the best way possible, lead the new generations forward in this new earth. What would you drop in this time capsule? You could anything that you can think of. This is like quantum possibilities. People have even like inserted like a frequency or a book or movie or a song or literally anything that you can think of. This is like imagination at its top expression. What would you leave in this time capsule?
Yeah, I would definitely leave my inner peace process. It is one of the greatest self-healing practices that I've discovered, that I continue to take my own medicine, because every time I get a trigger and I choose, instead of go to the fridge, stuff it, go on Netflix, go on Instagram, instead choosing to go step by step to the source of where it's coming from, to resolve the emotional charge that was resonant and isn't resonant in my body anymore, and pull those weeds of self-limiting beliefs. Every time I'm doing that, I'm releasing old programs, negative beliefs, and generational wounds that have been passed down that my daughters don't have to carry forth. So I've never been more inspired to continue taking my own medicine and to share it with more people. It's super empowering, as well as like on a big global level. Everything that we create here moving forward, we thank you for all the tyrannical leaders in the past that have showed us the contrast of what doesn't work, so that we can create from a foundation of what is in the greatest and highest good for all moving forward. And so, that can look like my involvement with power, like help this solar company I work with, that we help serve our community by creating clean energy. Like, it's incredible how it's a win-win-win. It's so simple and so empowering for people to, just make this one step. And so it's really an honor to be on that community and that company that is built on a foundation of what's in the highest and greatest good, such as Infinite TV, another platform that is based on the highest and greatest good that I have my show Inner Healer on. And they're all organizations that are doing creating things in a way that will be regenerative, that is sustainable, that can carry on and move forward, as opposed to what we've seen in the past and that's slowly crumbling right now. And so, I'm excited to support more people in that solar endeavor and just accelerate, the adoption of clean energy, worldwide, to people that are ready for that. And so that's another drip that I would leave in there is everything gets to be built from the foundation of what's in the highest, greatest good for all. Mother Earth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Charles, man, thank you so much for showing up with an open heart, with an open mind, and really gifting us all your personal stories. I think people already know that from this episode how powerful of a storyteller you are, and also what a leader you are that is able to vulnerably share things that are intimate and private to you and into me. You see, I love that, because as you were sharing, I was able to see certain patterns in myself, and I was able to look at the grief within myself. I was able to look at pain points that I had. So I just wanted to honor you for that. And I'm so excited that we made this happen. I'd love to have you back on, brother. I think we could have gone for another day, 24 hours speaking about all this stuff. But truly, man, from the heart, I really appreciate you.
Likewise, brother. It's truly a pleasure, and appreciate you and all that you do as well.
Much love. Thank you.